Best and worst first-year head coaching performances. We rank them right here at the Voice of College Football. Please like the video, share the videos out on social media, and subscribe right here. We had 13 first-year head coaches in 2022. Let's run them down. We started at number 13, and the worst performance turned in by Tony Elliott of Virginia. Longtime Dabo Swinney assistant at Clemson, 7 years as offensive coordinator, 11 total at Clemson. Actually won the Frank Broyles Award as the top assistant in the nation. But he takes over Virginia, which boasts the number one passing offense in the country in 2021, with Brennan Armstrong putting up 449 yards passing per game. And Virginia's got some playmakers back in addition to Armstrong, and they plummet from first to 81st in passing. They go from 31 touchdown passes to 7. They also didn't win games on the scoreboard, 3-7, 1-6 in the ACC, beat no one of consequence. Our number 13 first-year head coach is Tony Elliott of Virginia. Let's stay in state and go to another ACC Coastal Division coach, and Brent Pry of Virginia Tech. Now, to Brent Pry's defense, he left Penn State as defensive coordinator, goes to Virginia Tech, and takes over the worst roster in the program's history since going back to the early days of Frank Beamer. He's got no quarterback. He's got no special players on this team for the most part. He turned in a 3-8 season. They did defeat Liberty late in the season, 23-22. They did have 1-point losses against both Georgia Tech and NC State. They had a clunker right out of the gate against a 3-9 Old Dominion team, losing that one. At number 12, we go to Virginia Tech and Brent Pry. Now our 11th ranked first-year head coach is Mario Cristobal of Miami. We know what he did at Oregon. Took the Ducks to the Rose Bowl, won a couple Pac-12 championships. However, he goes to Miami, takes over a pretty darn good football team. They went 7-5. They went 5-3 in the ACC under Manny Diaz, who was not doing the job. They had defeated Pitt and North Carolina State the previous season, two of the best teams in the conference. Mario Cristobal takes it over, and they were an utter disaster last season. They go 5-7. That doesn't sound that god-awful, but it really is. They got blown out by Middle Tennessee State. They got blown out by Duke. They were just atrocious, a disaster all over the place, and not a good football team. They lost, to 45-3 to Florida State. Mario Cristobal did a bad job on the field in his first year. What saves him here? Top 4 recruiting class. He can recruit. We know that. So he takes over a top 15 roster and turns them into a top 75 team. Now we'll see what he can do in 2023. Our number 11 coach, a first-year head coach, is Mario Cristobal of Miami. At number 10, we go to Oklahoma and another former Clemson assistant, Brent Venables. The Sooners turned in their worst season since 1998 at 6-7. They did show up in the bowl game. That's to Brent Venables' credit. They took on a top 10 Florida State team and only lost in the final seconds on a late field goal. But this is a defensive guru. He should be able to fix a defense even with less than great defensive personnel. And he took a bad defense and he made them even worse. 122nd in the nation in total defense, number 82 in yards per play. They did survive a rough stretch early in the season, which they were completely annihilated by both Texas and TCU. Looked like the team had given up at that point, and they rallied to salvage a season and get to a bowl game. And Brent Venables, much like Mario Cristobal, is also recruiting out of his mind. He's got a top 5 class for 2023, and he is gaining great players in the transfer portal as well. Our number 10 head coach is an underachiever, at least through 1 year. It's Brent Venables at Oklahoma. Our 9th rated first-year head coach in college football is Billy Napier of Florida. Gets off to a great start opening night in the Swamp, taking on Pac-12 champion Utah. They win the game with a goal line stand against Cam Rising and company, but it was mostly down at 6-7, 3-5 in the SEC. They also defeated South Carolina just prior to the Gamecocks knocking off Tennessee and Clemson. They had a close loss against Florida State where they manned up and played well there. but also lost to Vandy, and again, a 6-7 finish for Florida and Billy Napier, who came in from Louisiana, where he went a stellar 40-12, 27-5 in conference play. But Billy Napier's got a lot of work to do at Florida. He's our number 9 coach. All those guys underachieved. Now we get to a section of coaches who basically delivered as expected based on the talent on the roster and what was expected. At number 8 of our first-year head coaches rankings, Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame. Took on Ohio State opening night, went to Columbus, and showed themselves very well. Lost 21-10, and then they turn around and lose to Marshall. They lose to Stanford, two of the most inexplicable losses of the 2022 season. Irish lose to Marshall and Stanford. However, they did lose their starting quarterback, Tyler Buckner, early in the season, but they did close out the season strong, including an exciting Gator Bowl win against South Carolina at 9-4. And now it's Sam Hartman coming to town. Marcus Freeman in Notre Dame looking for bright things in 2023 with an 8th rated recruiting class also in his back pocket. Our number 8 coach, Marcus Freeman, Irish. At number 7, we go to Oregon and Dan Lanning. Rewind 1 year, Dan Lanning was the defensive coordinator at Georgia and was prepping the Bulldogs for a championship run through the college football playoff at the same time as trying to build a program at Oregon. He was flying from coast to coast and getting the job done and recruiting well. He finished with the 12th rated recruiting class this past cycle after a near top 10 finish that initial try. Dan Lanning delivered a 10-3 team in the Pac-12 that won a bowl game in the Holiday Bowl against North Carolina. However, Dan Lanning's a defensive coach. The Ducks' defense was awful, especially in the secondary. Now he needs to fix that. Our number 7 head coach, Dan Lanning, Oregon. On to our next in line of first-year head coaches, and we go to LSU and Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly comes from Notre Dame, takes over LSU, and of course they are expecting SEC and national championships at LSU. Well, Brian Kelly, on one hand, took over a talented LSU roster, especially at offensive line, defensive line, and wide receiver. Also a depleted roster, though. They only suited up 37 scholarship players for their Texas Bowl game against Kansas State. They get off to a rough start, at least on the scoreboard, even though they played Florida State down to the wire, lose that game by a point. Of course, the crowning achievement for Brian Kelly was in Death Valley in overtime against Alabama, winning that game that tilted the SEC Western Division in LSU's favor, and they made it to the conference championship game. On the downside, they lose to Texas A&M. They also lose some other games. On the plus side, they have big comebacks against Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Brian Kelly's got a long way to go to meet the expectations at LSU, but he did bring in the 7th rated recruiting class in 2023. Our number 6 head coach of first-year head coaches, Brian Kelly, LSU. On to our number 5 first-year head coach and an unheralded selection for Texas Tech. Joey McGuire, the former linebacker coach at Baylor, gets the head job at Texas Tech, and he goes 8-5. Nice job by Joey McGuire as Texas Tech finished 4th in the Big 12 standings. They had a comeback win against Texas when they were down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They also defeated Ole Miss in the Texas Bowl. Big win over Lane Kiffin and company, and almost defeated TCU. They had a fourth quarter lead against the Horned Frogs. Joey McGuire, nice job at Texas Tech in leading the Red Raiders to an 8-5 finish. Our number 5 first-year head coach. Now at number 4, we go out to USC and Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley, of course, comes from Oklahoma, brings Caleb Williams and Mario Williams and others with him, and immediately jumpstarts the offense and makes it prolific. Lincoln Riley, we know, can coach offense. He has delivered another Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, another fleet set of receivers, and a ton of points and a ton of yardage in going 11-1 in the regular season before a Pac-12 championship loss to Utah and a Cotton Bowl collapse against Tulane. Well, USC was a 4-8 team with a bad defense in 2021, and Lincoln Riley did little to fix the defensive side of the ball, and he still refuses to hire a special teams coordinator. So the defense and the special teams are still black marks. Lincoln Riley's been a head coach for 6 seasons now between Oklahoma and USC and has never fielded a good defense. However, he can win, he can put up points, and USC is on the rise. Our number 4, first-year head coach, Lincoln Riley, USC. And at number 3, it's like Kalen DeBoer completely wiped out the Jimmy Lake tenure at Washington. Kalen DeBoer takes over a 4-8 Washington team and leads them to 11 wins, just 2 losses and a top 10 finish and a bowl game win against Texas. Kalen DeBoer's at number 3. What a job he did coming in from Fresno State, where he just completed a 9-3 season. He's a Division III champion at Sioux Falls. He's got Michael Penix coming back at quarterback, and the Huskies are on a roll, having defeated a lot of good teams, including Oregon and Oregon State in the Pac-12, en route again to an 11-2 finish. Our number 3 first-year head coach is Kalen DeBoer, Washington. On to number 2, and I am astounded at the job Mike Elko did at Duke. It's remarkable. Get these numbers. David Cutcliffe, highly respected coach, lifted Duke to prominence, decent level of play, including an ACC championship game in 2013. However, Duke was awful again over the past 4 or 5 seasons, including 1-17 in ACC play the 2 years prior to Mike Elko. Elko, the former defensive coordinator at Notre Dame and Texas A&M, comes in, and Duke lit it up. With Riley Leonard at quarterback, 9-4 finish. They came within converting a late drive against North Carolina from going to the ACC championship game. They did not get blown out against anyone. They were competitive in every game. Duke, with a bowl victory against UCF, what a job Mike Elko did in going 9-4 at Duke. Our number 2 first-year head coach, Mike Elko, Duke. And in just about any other season, Mike Elko would have been number 1. However, we had the rags to riches story to a national championship game at TCU with Sonny Dykes. And what is remarkable about the Sonny Dykes story is that Sonny Dykes has been a Group of 5 coach at Louisiana Tech and SMU and did a nice job. Those teams won most of its games, went to bowl games, but he had one Power 5 job prior to TCU, and that was at Cal, and it was a near disaster. So Sonny Dykes really had no track record in the Power 5 of being able to show us what he would eventually accomplish at TCU. He found a quarterback in Max Duggan. Well, he found him because of injury. He found playmakers all over the place. He's an offensive mind, and he implemented his system, got these guys to believe. They started to pull out unbelievable comeback victories against the likes of Kansas State and Oklahoma State in particular, and they make it to the college football playoff, and they defeat Michigan. And yes, it all ended very ugly against Georgia, 65-7. However, TCU went from 5-7 to a college football playoff in the national championship game. So our number 1 first-year head coach is an easy selection to make. It's Sonny Dykes of TCU. Your thoughts below right here at the Voice of College Football. We appreciate you being here. Please like the video. Please subscribe. Hit that bell for the notifications to know when we go live, because we would love to take your call right here at the Voice of College Football. Next up, new hire coaches rankings right here at the Voice of College Football.